Welcome back to the Doc Fitness Podcast. I am your host, David O'Connor, and you are listening to episode number 58. So today is a solo Coffee with the Coaches episode where I'm going to dive deep into 3 questions that I've got recently through our social media channels. So without further ado, let's dive straight in. Questions. They can often get missed when they're answered on social media. I love answering stuff on Instagram stories, for example, but often if you're not fully attentive to going through something on Instagram stories, or if the person answering the question is not given a bigger picture context, sometimes we can get lost and we think that, answers to questions are black and white. And we know in the fitness world, especially the nutrition and training world, that is not the case. There has to be context. There's always nuance to questions. And the answer to a lot of questions is, it depends. So that is why I'm prefacing for this first one. Do I need to do cardio to lose fat? Now, people want a yes or no answer here. And if I was to give a yes or no answer, the answer would be no. But I'd also follow up by saying, but there is some caveats to this. There has to be some context. And the first thing you need to ask yourself is, number 1, do you actually enjoy doing cardio? Because if you enjoy cardio and your goal is trying to lose fat, you can mix the two, no problem. We know that the best thing we need to do for losing fat is to retain our muscle tissue, which is what brings about that muscle tone, which is resistance training. Like on average, your general recommendation is we should be resistance training minimum 3 times a week, especially when we're losing fat to hold on to that muscle tissue. Now, where does cardio come in? Number 1, do you like cardio? Number 2, how many days a week do you plan to do that? Number 3, can you recover from all of that? Number 4, does it fit with your schedule? Like if somebody was sacrificing a resistance training session for a cardio session, I would try and flip it in its head and do the opposite. I would prioritize a resistance training session over the cardio session. But again, that depends. If somebody loves cardio, they love going for a run, we're not going to do that. In that case, we put in the cardio session over the resistance training session and try to maximize our 1 to 2 days a week resistance training on top of that. So that's the first thing you need to think about. If you really enjoy cardio, you can pepper it in. Number 2, and it's the biggest one, is how active are you as a person? Does your job require you to sit down a lot throughout the day? Because if it does, you're probably going to be better off adding a little bit of cardio element to your week. Now, the thing is, does that cardio need to be a fucking hour in the treadmill in the gym? No, it does not. Does it need to be an hour running the roads? No, it does not. For somebody who is inactive, they sit down a lot during the day, your cardio can literally be getting more active throughout your day, throughout your week. For example, I know the step counts are thrown around a lot these days, and for good reason. We know that like if we're hitting 7,000 to 10,000 plus steps a day, that like the data is there to back it up, that people are healthier, they're more active, they're fitter, etc., right? There is no magic bullet to this, but like if you track your calorie or you track your step count and you're only hitting 3,000 a day, you're going to benefit by adding in even 1,000 steps to that. You're going to benefit by trying to probably double that over time to look to get that ballpark range of 6,000 to 10,000. And I think 6,000 to 10,000 is a very good range, because if somebody is training 3 to 4 days a week and they're hitting 6,000 steps, that's fine. If somebody is training 3 days a week and they're hitting 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day, I think we need to get those steps up, simply because it's going to make life easier for you. You're going to have more health benefits. You're going to be fitter. You're going to be more aerobically fit, etc. Now, back to the cardio thing. I think it's this belief that we need to do cardio. And then we have the other question of, do fasted cardio if you want to lose fat. First thing in the morning on an empty stomach is going to help burn more fat, which is, again, a myth. It is not backed by hard science. You don't magically lose more fat. Again, we know we need to be in a deficit to lose fat. And that's my last kind of summary to this. What is required to lose fat is a calorie deficit. If we can create that through our training and through our diet, do we need to do cardio? No. Is cardio going to help a fat loss phase? Potentially might. If it helps you stick to a deficit better, yes. If you enjoy it, yes, it's going to probably be better. If you're super inactive, if you have a job where you sit down most of the day and you do not go for walks, or you struggle to get in walks, having planned cardio days are going to be beneficial for you. But that cardio could be a planned walk, for example. That cardio could be a conditioning session for 20 minutes to half an hour in the gym. That cardio could be a planned light run for 20 to 30 minutes. It could be an interval style run where you run for like a period of time on, a period of time off. Don't just think that it's a black and white answer of no or yes. Me personally, I prefer to look at cardio stuff more like conditioning stuff, and I create that conditioning stuff at the end of workouts. Or if I want to do a standalone conditioning session, I'll utilize some of our favorite cardio machines like we use here in the gym, like ski ergs, rowers, assault bikes, that kind of stuff, sleds, prowlers, etc. So yeah, what is your ultimate goal? Is it to lose fat, or is it to get fitter aerobically? Do you enjoy cardio? Can you fit it into your week? All questions to answer before you can truly answer that for yourself. But the short answer is no, you do not need to do cardio to lose fat. Okay, I think we've labored that one to death. Let's move on to the next one. In my opinion, what is the best time of day to train? Okay, so my opinion is different to what the science actually says on this. And we kind of know based on recent science that has showed up that number one, is there a science to best time to train throughout the day? And there is, but again, there's some caveats to it, right? It's shown now that I think it's like afternoon to late afternoon type thing, or afternoon to evening is considered quote unquote the best time to train because our core body temperature is higher, I think, or it's at its peak during those hours, which means you can better translate that into strength and fitness performance gains, right? So I think I have it written down here between 2:30 and 8:30 if you have a regular sleep-wake cycle. Things like your sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm comes into it as well. Are you an early morning riser? Are you a late owl, whatever they're called, a night owl, late owl? But those factors come into it as well to see, like, is that going to be quote-unquote optimal for that person? Now, where does optimal just go out the window? And I think it goes out the window for most people, especially the people that we train anyway, and even for myself. What is going to be the best time of day to train for me is at a time that literally suits my schedule. If I rewind back 5 years when I didn't have as much responsibilities, I didn't have as much on my plate, I could train around my coaching hours here at the gym, which is still the same way now. But now that I have more priorities, I have a child, things have changed dramatically for me. So windows of opportunity for me are less. And when I get those windows of opportunity, I grasp them as best I can. If some days that's the morning for me, fantastic. If some days if that's mid-afternoon to late evening for me, it doesn't really matter. I'll take it, you know? So I don't start looking at these things as what's optimal, because what's optimal for me is kind of more or less what I can fit in right now. And that's what's going to be optimal for a lot of people. You can get too hung up on these finer details. Really, you can, because at the end of the day, as long as we're drilling the basics, this stuff does not matter. This stuff is fluff compared to everything else that actually truly matters. I have some more notes written on this here because Menno Henselmans actually has a great article on this, which I'm going to link up in the show notes. But the optimal body temperature for strength training normally occurs in the late afternoon to early evening, like I said, between 2:30 and 8:30. That's when flexibility, power, and muscular strength reach their daily peak. Accordingly, most sports records are broken in the early evening, which is a very, very cool piece of research. Again, he has a great article on that. If you want to geek out a bit more, I'll link that up in the show notes. But like I said, life gets in the way. What if you love to train first thing in the morning, get it out of the way before work, right? But you can't. Either that you can't get to the gym on time, or the gym is full at that time, or you literally have to mind the kids in the morning, get them out to school or whatever it is. So you can't physically train that time. Obviously, the next time you can get in is what's going to be what's best for you. Then you have to look at your work schedule, your life schedule. It has, like, there's going to be priorities in place before you can train, but that doesn't mean that we should let that go out the window. I truly believe that, like, by structuring this as a priority into your week, it's a non-negotiable, really. Training for yourself should be a non-negotiable. Because if you don't do that, where are you putting that time in for yourself throughout the week? Before you know it, weeks will snowball and you've only hit the gym once over a month or whatever it might be. So stop looking for what's the optimal time. If you want an optimal time, use a bit of science after giving you between 2:30 and 8:30, which is a big window. But other things are going to impact that too. Stress is going to impact that. Working a long day job is going to impact that. Working a high labor job or a manual labor job is going to impact that. If you have a lot of stress at work that day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're all going to have knock-on effects. So stop thinking about what's the best time of day to train. Do what suits you. Simple as that. Okay, take a breath, take a sip of coffee. Last one, which I actually answered on Instagram a few weeks back, because even though I wanted to put on this podcast, I felt the urge to answer it there and then, because I think it's an important message. And the question I got was, what is the biggest mistake you've made in an effort to lose fat and gain muscle? I got this from a young guy, which I think was fantastic. If I had the same, if I had my head screwed on as much as he did in asking that question back when I was that age, I would have made a lot less mistakes. But at the same time, life is about making mistakes. Life is about fucking up, learning from that, and then moving forward to not repeat that mistake in the future. That is what failure is all about. If we don't go through those periods of ups and downs, how can we truly experience things and get better for the long term? Excuse me. I think where people fall down is if they have a setback in the gym, if they have a setback with their diet, if they eat a bit more on a certain day or the weekends, or they have a few pints, they're hungover and they eat pizza and takeaway, that they think it's the end of the world. When it's not. Like, you just pick up and you move on. You learn from, you move on, whatever you might learn from something. Like, if somebody is hungover and they hadn't planned to be hungover as much as they were, and they ate either feck all that day because they were so hungover, or they ate a lot and let most of it was takeaways, there's no point dwelling on that the day after. What good is that going to do? So you might learn from that in the future that, oh, if I'm hungover, it's okay if I have a takeaway and relax that day and enjoy myself, and I'll recuperate and I come back stronger the next day. It's a mentality thing rather than beating yourself up for that week around that. And that doesn't just go for people that are hungover. It's if somebody has a takeaway in a weekend, it's not the end of the world. Again, these should be planned into your week anyway. I have 1 to 2 takeaways a week, dependent on what my flavor or taste buds are like that week. So back to the question, what is the biggest mistake I've made? I think that if I was to put it into one mistake, it has to be looking for the shiny bullet. Thinking that by me going on to the next thing, or going on to the next thing, or going to the next thing, that I was going to get these so-called results I was after in my head. Like, if I rewind, we'll say, Jesus, if I rewind 10 years, right, and I give you a bit of a background story, I really got into fitness. You know, I was always into fitness. I was always into sport, but I really got into the resistance training side only in my late teens, 18, 19. And probably 16 onwards, but it was only like 18, 19 where I started to get properly consistent with it, because I was in college, I was drinking a lot, et cetera, et cetera. And I started to get results for myself. I started to get a little bit stronger. Friends noticed I was getting a little bit bigger. I was scouring the internet. I was scouring bodybuilding.com. I was looking up YouTube videos. I was doing all the stuff that people do before they actually ask for help. And as a result of that, I was super confused, because the internet, while it's a great place, can be a super dangerous place at the same time. And I hadn't a clue how to filter that information. And it's still hard today. Like, people do not know how to filter what's good and what's quote unquote bad. I hate putting things in those black and white terms, but if you're to think about it in that way, it's an okay way to look at it. Like, what's conclusive to my goals, what's not. And I was kind of getting caught up in all that, and I was trying fucking everything. I was trying Arnold's bodybuilding programs. I was trying numerous bodybuilders programs, ridiculous stuff, and not realizing that these are people up to their eyeballs in steroids and gear. And I was like, why am I getting results that they're getting? Just silly stuff. So I was scouring the internet. I was looking for all this stuff, and I started to come across, that's when I started to come across basic stuff like whey protein. I came across whey protein very, very early on. I used to think it was just magic thing, when I realized it's only a food supplement to help you get more protein into your diet. Whey protein led into creatine. Came across that, started taking creatine. Creatine led into BCAAs, which I wasted an inordinate amount of money on, and realized years later that they're a complete waste of time. And then that led down the route of specific diets then. So I started looking at, I did paleo for a good while, which caused a fucked up relationship with food, which I'm not going to get into too long. I tried keto, I think, for a couple of weeks, disaster. But I had this thing in my head where by me doing that, I was going to get absolutely shredded and jacked out of the blue. That's what I thought in my head. Again, I was looking for that magic thing. Fast forward about a year after I was trying all that kind of stuff, I came across these guys over in London that were selling online programs. selling basically PDFs with meal plans and PDFs with training plans that you just buy it and everyone gets the same thing. And it was fairly new to all me. Like, I think it was one of the first things I seen that you could purchase online. I bought that and I committed to that. And again, highly unrealistic. Training plan was just ridiculous. The food side of it was just a generic meal plan that was super low calorie. But you see, because I was a young, disciplined lad, I just stuck to it and did it mindlessly. I didn't really care what was going on around me. I cooked my food. I didn't go out on weekends. I drank way less. I didn't do takeaways. I was super strict with myself. I was counting fucking almonds, putting them into Tupperware boxes with rice and chicken. And there is a joke out there in the bodybuilding world where people are looking to get leaner, rice, chicken, and broccoli, having rice, chicken, and broccoli for your meals. I did that. I actually did that. I actually paid for a meal plan that asked me to do that and count almonds. And I was on Kate, my wife, was only joking to you about this a few weeks ago as well, because I ended up buying, she wanted to do it as well. So I ended up buying the female version of that plan for her. And we used to count out almonds in the kitchen, put our meals together. And when I think about it, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it makes me laugh. But again, like, I think I had to go through that to experience those things for myself. But again, I was looking for that silver bullet thing. I thought, right, I've tried this. Now I'm going to try this meal plan and this training plan. I don't even think I finished a full one of their training sessions because they were just ridiculous. And their thing was that they have different workouts every day of the week, and every week they have a different focus day. And that was kind of it. Funnily enough, I Googled them before I came on here, and they're actually still going. I thought they'd be long gone, to be honest. I'm not going to name any names or anything like that. But what did that teach me? I think you've already deciphered that. But in short, there is no one fucking thing that is going to get you into the shape of your life. What is going to get you into the shape of your life is an evidence-based approach repeated consistently over time, which requires patience, which requires bits of discipline, which requires you to overcome obstacles when you're presented with them, and to, I suppose, be willing to put in hard work at changing habits that are ingrained to you for years, because that's the hardest thing. If you're disciplined enough to follow a meal plan, great. I don't really care if you can or not, because the meal plans teach you nothing anyway. What's going to happen after that meal plan? And that's why we approach this philosophy here in Doc Fitness. We teach people basics. We teach people the fundamentals behind how we lose weight, how we gain weight, how we maintain our weight. And then we put that into real world action advice. We utilize tools that are available to us. Like MyFitnessPal, for example, is literally just a tool. You don't have to use MyFitnessPal. We use MyFitnessPal as a teaching method for clients to learn what's in what and where they're actually at with food intake, that kind of stuff. We'll use it for periods on and off. Some clients will use it more than others. Some clients won't use it at all, etc. We have a default kind of dieting approach where, not that it's a dieting approach, it's a default diet pattern. So like, if you're not trying to lose fat, if you're not trying to gain muscle, you're just maintaining your weight. How can you go about your day-to-day life without having to overly focus on tracking protein, tracking calories, or anything like that? We have methods for doing that. So we're not fixated on fucking calories all the time, because so many people are fixated on calories. The training, we resistance train 3 to 5 days a week, depending on how you can fit into your schedule, using the compound movements. We sprinkle in bits of conditioning into that, so you're covering the full body. So we cover our main movements, we cover our core, squat, push, pull, hip hinge, single leg work, and then conditioning work. Again, we're following scientific training principles. And we repeat that over time. If we want to lose fat, we need to go into a deficit. If we want to gain muscle, we need to go into a surplus. And we need to be in that surplus for a long enough time that we can actually see results. And then it comes down to how we're tracking that progress, yada, yada, yada. If you're not doing something right, there's always going to be something along the way that tells us we're not doing that right, so we can rectify it and move forward. But that's it. Nothing is going to beat the basics drilled over time while being super consistent with those. But here's the thing. Not many people know about those basics. Not many people can put those basics into real world actionable advice. Not many people can stick to a calorie deficit. Not many people can stick to a calorie surplus. And that's where we as coaches come in. We help people do that. We become the guide dog for people so they can get those results long term. And a big goal for us as coaches is like to not have clients need us. Clients stick with us because they love and enjoy training with us, whether that's our online clients or our clients here in the gym in Kilcolgan and Galway. They stick around because they love it. We do members events out to the gym. We try to bring a bit of buzz, a bit of crack, a bit of enjoyment. But technically, we don't want our clients to need us, because then we just become another slimming club where you'll get results if you stick to it whilst you're in the slimming club. But what happens when you go back to real life? What happens when you enjoy a meal out? You can't really, because you're off plan, and then that sets off a whole negative spiral in your head. But yeah, the biggest mistake I've ever made in an effort to lose fat and gain muscle is thinking that there's a shiny bullet thing that's going to give me short-term results, when it's not the case. Nothing will beat effort to consistency put in over time following evidence-based principles. Okay, that's today's Coffee with the Coaches complete. If we were to recap, we had the cardio question to lose fat. The short answer was no, but there's caveats to that. The best time of day to train, again, there is some science behind it, but what's applicable to you? And the last one, what was the biggest mistake I made, which I just went through. Guys, the episodes for this, the show notes, for this episode will be over at docfitness.ie/episode 58. And as always, if you have any questions when I ask for them on Instagram, don't be afraid to pop them over. This is exactly where these Coffee with the Coaches style episodes are born. And I love diving into questions that have a little bit more context behind them in the effort to help you understand things a little bit better. So I hope there's something that you can take from that. Anything that's relevant to this podcast will be linked up in the show notes. And that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll chat to you soon. Bye-bye.